Grove Road in Marion, Indiana. Mr. Jones is 56 years old, having been born on September 26, 1946. My name is Brianna Ford, and I'll be the interviewer. Could you state for the recording what war and branch of service you served in?
I served in Vietnam and was in the Air Force. Phan Rang was a place in Vietnam. We were also stationed at Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines.
What was your rank?
Airman First Class.
Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted in the Air Force in 1966
Where were you living at the time?
in Jalapa, Indiana.
Why did you volunteer?
Well, my father talked me into joining the Air Force for the purpose of maybe learning something I could use after I got out.
Why did you pick to be in the Air Force?
Well, like I previously stated, my dad wanted me to go in the Air Force instead of the Army or Marines or something like that. So maybe I could possibly learn something I could use on the outside. But when I got in the Air Force, I chose a weapons field, which wasn't too much demand or to get out of the service. Except I could have got a job in Phoenix, Arizona, working for Lockheed, working on 104s, but I've been away from home for a long time. So I decided to come home.
Do you remember your first days in service?
Yeah, I was from being home all the time, not being out in uh, different states and stuff, and basically spending my life around Marion, Indiana. It was kind of an experience to go to different big towns and meet different people from all over the United States.
And tell me about your boot camp experiences.
Oh, some guys took pretty hard, but I took my basic in San Antonio, Texas, and at that time they had a outbreak of spinal meningitis, which kind of put a damper on doing a lot of things. So they kind of kept all the flights to themselves rather than doing a lot of other things which you would normally do. They kind of cut our training back as far as this physical part, doing obstacle courses and stuff like that. So I didn't think it was all that bad.
Do you remember who instructed you in your training?
I remember the guys as far as their faces and stuff, but I don't really remember their names.
How did you handle training?
Oh, I don't know. It's like I said, I didn't think it was too rough. I mean, um, it makes you appreciate things that you have at home that you don't really think about. Like, you don't think nothing about hopping in the car and going to Marion getting a pizza or whatever, or hopping in the car and going to here or going there. But you're kind of in a restricted environment, and you can't really have any pop candy, anything like that, or smoke unless somebody says you can. So you get to eat real fast, and you get to learn how to, you know, when you get up in the morning and you have to get everything straightened around and be standing tall within, 15 or 20 minutes, it makes it, but it's part of discipline. I think it probably does you good.
How long were you in training before you went to Vietnam?
Approximately 6 months. Um, we spent 2 or 3 months in basic, and then we went to tech school, I think, for 4 or 5 months. I don't recall exactly the date, but I think I went in February, and I think I went to Vietnam in September.
Where exactly did you go in Vietnam?
Well, we were stationed at Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines, and our unit was TDY to Vietnam, Phan Rang, Vietnam. And we were in a weapons field I was in a weapons maintenance outfit. We were short of people, like everybody. The pilots rotated back to the Philippines every 60 days, but we stayed anywhere from 4 to 5 months at a time. Then we go back to the Philippines for a week or two, pick up some new guys, do whatever, and then come back for another 3 or 4 or 5 months, depending on how long you had to stay.
Do you remember arriving there and what it was like?
Yeah, I remember the first time. It was different. We lived in tents. There's a lot of mud. Um, our shower facilities was a big tank full of water, and you opened a valve and it just ran by gravity. And if you worked day shift, you could get a nice warm shower when you got off Navy, but if you worked third, it was usually cold.
What was your assignment?
Well, they had load crews that loaded bombs, which I was assigned to, and then they had guys we called gun plumbers that worked on the guns. They had to replace them, or I had to load ammo in the guns, but I was on a load crew, and there would be a frag sheet would come down and had certain plane numbers and what you had to load on whatever plane, and then my crew chief, he was in charge of where the plane took 4 750s, 4 napalm, whatever, and we had a bomb lift driver and a number 2 man, and I was the number 4 man, which basically fused bombs and tried to help the guy at the bomb lift lock the bomb in and stuff.
What squadron were you in?
I was in the 8th and 13th Bomb Squadron.
Did you see combat?
No.
Were there many casualties in your unit?
We didn't lose too many planes while I was over there. There was a few of them that had some close calls, but we was pretty fortunate.
Tell me about a couple of your most memorable experiences.
Well, we was one night we was downloading some 1,000-pounders, 1,000-pound bomb. The pilot brought 2 back, and we was downloading them. And it's kind of funny when you look back on that stuff. The bomb left one underneath the front one, and the number 2 man released the bomb, and both of them fell down. One of them fell on the bomb left, and the other one fell down on the ramp, and we drug it out with the chain. And there's this guy we called nose pickers. That took care of the plane. He came up. It was at night. We had the lights turned around so nobody could see what we was doing, and he looked in there to see what we was doing. He took off and ran the other way. I thought that was kind of funny, but no, I wouldn't think it's too funny now, maybe.
Were you awarded any medals or citations?
No, we basically got about all the same. Anybody that served in Vietnam got a ribbon for being in Vietnam, and then we got a ribbon for being in the Pacific Theater from the Philippines, and I got a marksmanship award when I was in basic training, which that's I don't remember exactly how many shots. It wasn't all that strenuous. I can't remember where it was. Seemed like to me, and it's been a long time ago, it seemed like to me if you only missed 2 out of 50, I think if you scored a 48 or 49, I think they give you that ribbon, but I wouldn't swear to it.
How did you stay in touch with your family?
I just wrote a lot of letters, and I got a lot of letters from home, which I was fortunate for that, and thankful for that.
What was the food like?
Oh, when I first got over there, we ate a lot of sea rice and stuff, but we got a lot of stuff from home. But later on, they build a cafeteria and stuff, which, you know, we always had plenty to eat. Stuff when I don't think being grown up in America, you don't realize what a lot of people have to eat every day. You know, I don't know if you've ever had rubber eggs, but they're kind of a they're not real good, but they're not real bad.
Did you have plenty of supplies?
Oh yes, I don't know. We always had plenty to eat, drink, and as far as bombs and ammunition or whatever, we never seemed to run out. Always had plenty of that.
Did you feel pressure or stress?
Oh, I don't know. When you're that young, you don't really. I didn't really feel. I suppose maybe some guys do, but I was more or less. Just following orders of my, you know, I had a crew chief and he told us what to do, and I really didn't really feel like we was under a lot of pressure. If I wouldn't know back then what I know now, maybe it'd been a little different. But I guess when you're young, it's like, I don't know. Just young guys do things that they don't think about at the time, whether it's riding dirt bikes or racing cars or any number of other things that you don't think too much about at the time. And then when you get older, you think, gosh, I maybe got hurt doing that. It went pretty well, really.
Was there something special you did for good luck?
No.
How did people entertain themselves?
Well, when we was in Vietnam, there wasn't a whole lot of entertainment, although Nancy Sinatra came one time, and I don't even remember the occasion or the date or whatever, but she did. We had an outdoor theater, and she came one time. But we used to play a lot of cards, and usually, if we got a day off, we usually tried to find something to drink, which wasn't hard to do. Booze is cheaper than pop. So.
What did you do when on leave?
Well, I really didn't get a leave. When I got out of tech school, I got 30-day leave before I went over there, and then I was I'm trying to remember. Went over there, I think, in September of '66, and I came back in November of '67 or the early part of December of '67. The guys that went PCS to Vietnam, they usually got an R&R break of some kind, but since we were TDY from the Philippines, they really didn't give us any kind of R&R, so we were just kind of there. Our R&R was when we went back to the Philippines, I guess.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events?
Oh, every day there was something going on where it'd be a bomb hung up on a plane that wouldn't come off, or guns jammed, or pilots swearing up and down that the plane had been hit, but you look all over it, you can't find anything, almost like they was disappointed. But no, every day was just something unusual, regardless of, you know, just the everyday thing of loading bombs and taking care of planes and stuff. But I don't really recall anything. I know there's a guy that, I don't know how humorous this is, I thought it was kind of stupid, but they used to de-arm planes at the end of the runway everywhere. They always have leftover shells. And some of the guys would take them apart and have little piles of powder. Well, this one guy lit one and it flared up and burnt the back of his hand, and he told people in charge that he was up on the wing de-arming a plane, and he fell against the hot motor and burned his hand, which I don't know how you burn the back of your hand, but that's what he told them. So we all thought that was kind of humorous, that they bought that story.
Did you or others pull pranks?
No, once in a while, maybe on a day off, things go on, but most of the time it was pretty serious.
What did you think of officers or fellow soldiers?
I don't know. We're pretty much all in it together, so I don't. I think there was mutual respect among everybody. Everybody was over there. We was an officer, enlisted man, or whatever. So,
Did you keep a personal diary?
no.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
Well, service in Vietnam or service as when I got out of the service period, or
Out of Vietnam.
okay, when I left Vietnam, we they always made sure we got over there, but when we came back, they pretty much left it up to us to find a ride back. I think my last time over there, I think we flew a C-123 to Cam Bay, ended up hopping a plane back to Phan Rang, and then we went to Saigon, and then we ended up in the Philippines.
What did you do in the days and weeks after you came back home?
Well, after I got out of Vietnam, I went back to the Philippines, and for every so many months you spent in Vietnam, you had so much cut off your tour. So instead of spending 18 months in the Philippines, I think I was over there 14 or 16 months. I can't recall, but so I came back early from the Philippines, and I got stationed in Phoenix, Arizona at Luke Air Force Base, and my wife and we got married December the 23rd of '67, and then she went ahead and finished college. A friend of mine I was in Vietnam with, we both got stationed in Arizona, so we went out there, and my wife came out there when she got out of college, and I spent the last 2 years in the service out there, and I got discharged out of the Air Force when I was in Arizona.
Did you work or go back to school?
No, when I got discharged out of the service, I packed up everything and we came home, and I returned to, at that time it was RCA, a factory I worked at before I went to service.
Did you make any close friendships while in service?
Several.
Have you continued any of those relationships?
Yes, several of those too. I don't, if you want to be specific numbers, there's 3 or 4, 5. One of my close friends, he ended up marrying my wife's sister. So that was kind of neat.
Did you join a veterans organization?
Well, I joined the Legion for a while over at Van Buren, and then my younger brother, he also belonged, but then we kind of got away from that. But I belong to an organization which it's all a bunch of weapons guys who was in Vietnam. It's called the B-57 Bummers. We meet every 2 years. Our next reunion is going to be in Branson, Missouri in 2004. I'm not sure the exact date. And we send email and talk on the phone. And I went to Florida in March and talked to my old crew chief that lives in Georgia. And tried to find another guy that we've been looking for that lived in Kissimmee, Florida. But he's since moved to Plano, Texas, but he's gonna spend a couple years out there and then go back. So I'll probably see him one of these days. We talk on the phone once in a while.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Oh, I don't know. You don't think too much about it when you're doing it, I guess. To me, war is kind of a waste of time, as far as I can see. But there's usually, without getting into the political end of it, I would think that as time goes on and history and all that, and people supposedly get smarter, they'd think of different ways to address problems without war, but we haven't seemed to accomplish that yet, so may never. I don't know.
How did your service and experiences affect your life?
Well, it probably influences your life more than what you think, but it makes you thankful that you were born in America.
Is there any other memories that you would like to share?
Oh, I don't know. I could probably go on, but there's really, I don't know. I guess when you see little kids begging for money or stuff, and kids 6 and 7 years old, or 5 years old, selling flowers at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning in front of bars and places like that. This the world's got a long way to go, I guess. I don't know. Like I say, it makes you thankful that you live in America. I guess looking back, the whole time I spent in the service was a good learning experience. It's a shame that all the young men and women can't get some kind of experience of seeing how other people live in different countries, and give a little discipline, having to do things just so, and taking orders. I guess at the time you don't think it's too good, but I would like to think we did some good when I was in Vietnam. I guess that remains to be seen. We didn't have a lot of support back home here that maybe we thought we should have had. But I really don't see how a war could be all that popular. So it was kind of easy for me to understand. Maybe not so much that easy for others, because I've heard a lot of negative complaints about Vietnam veterans talking to me about how they were received when they came back home. I still feel real fortunate to be able to have some kind of relationship with some of the men I served with. I have the utmost admiration for the men who gave it all for the United States of America. I know that'd be a hard thing to do, being a parent, to give your son or daughter to any kind of military action, and hoping your leaders know what they're up to or know what they're doing is right. I hope someday we can figure out a better way. And I guess that's about it.